My whole diagnosis is based on self-advocacy. Like if I had just listened to the 5, 6 doctors that had told me that nothing was wrong, then I don't think I'd be here today. So my name is Tor. I'm 32 years old and originally from England, but I live now in China. I was diagnosed with appendix cancer called LAMN. I was diagnosed in 2022. I'd had stomachache for a really long time, like on and off for like 6, 7 years. Every time I ate something, I had like kind of stabbing pains in my abdomen. And I went to see some doctors in England. I went to see doctors in China, but every time I went to see someone, I was always told that it was fine. Like at one point, I was told it was exercise strain. So I was kind of used to having these pains not every time I ate something, they'd come on sporadically. And I just thought I had a food intolerance to something that I had just never figured out. I went to A&E in Taiwan because the pain just didn't stop. And when I went to A&E, they gave me like a pain injection, and then sent me home. So I went back home, and then for another week, I just kind of tried to get on with life. But for that week, I just couldn't eat. Every time I ate something, I was in pain. And so then I went to see a different doctor, and he luckily saw something in me and was like, okay, let's try and help. And so he sent me to a gastroenterologist. And in Taiwan, every speciality is in a different location and building. So I went to a gastroenterologist, did an ultrasound. They said everything's fine, everything's clear. So then he sent me to a gynecologist. Again, everything was fine, everything was clear. And so I was going to see different doctors, and everyone was just telling me that everything was absolutely fine and there was nothing wrong. And so I just got a taxi to go home. But then as the taxi pulled up at my house, something inside me was like, no, like turn around, like go to the hospital. So I went to A&E again and I begged for a CT scan. And luckily this doctor that I'd met, he was on the other end of the phone. And again, in the hospital, they were like, ultrasound's clear, bloods are clear, there's nothing wrong, you don't need a CT scan. And I was just like, please give me a CT scan, because the pain was so unbearable. I could barely stand. And eventually they agreed to give me a CT scan. And then they came back and said, oh, actually, we can see a mass in your stomach, near your bowel. I'm pretty sure at one point they were like, have you swallowed something? And I was like, no. And then they said, they thought initially my bowel was twisted. And so they just said, you need to go into surgery, and you need to go into surgery now. So then I had emergency surgery in Taiwan. I was only given a couple of hours, or not even, to come to terms with it. So I just had to ring my mum and dad and just be like, look, I'm in hospital in Taiwan and I'm going into surgery now. And I just remember crying on the phone. And I was so scared that I was going to die in Taiwan away from my family. And as I was going into theatre, the nurses were saying in Chinese, oh, what a pity, poor her, she's on her own. And I could hear them saying this, and it just made me feel more alone as they were wheeling me into theatre. And I don't know, I was just terrified that I was not gonna make it. So I actually said, I didn't say bye to my mum and dad, but I just rang them crying. I remember waking up screaming from the bed. And I don't know whether that's because of the pain or the shock, or I have no idea, but I remember waking up screaming. And then for the next couple of days, I was just vomiting green bile, which was extremely painful because I just had abdominal surgery. And all I could do was ring the bell and ask the nurses to give me some medication, but I was just vomiting green bile. And I was so scared that it meant that the surgery hadn't worked or that something was wrong, because no one really communicated with me. And then I had some friends in Taiwan that would nip into the hospital to come and see me, but they couldn't stay there the whole day. So most of the time I was alone in the hospital, which meant that I couldn't really do anything for myself. Like at one point I like threw up on my bed, but I couldn't change my bed, so I just like went to sleep. But I mean, I don't want to say bad things about the nurses because they were really good in their own way. It's just different culturally. But yeah, and then I couldn't walk. I initially had like a catheter and a toilet pot, which when I woke up from surgery, they asked me, "Hey, did you bring your pee pot?" Because also in Taiwan, you provide your own materials. So you provide your water, your soap, your toilet paper, which because I was going into emergency surgery, obviously never planned this. Initially, I was told that it was a benign tumor, and I think that's the confusion with appendix cancer as well, and because it's so rare. So initially in Taiwan, I was told it was benign, so I believed that I had a benign tumor, and then I flew back to the UK to recover. And then when I went to see my doctor in the UK, they just kind of were like, "Oh yeah, malignant tumor, yeah," and I was like, "What?" And then that's when I started to learn that it was cancerous, but I was so confused because I'd been told that it was benign. And then I don't think it really hit me until I started to receive letters through the post to come to CTs and MRIs and do cancer checkups. Yeah, so that would have been even probably 6 months later. To be honest, um, initially I was confused, like I didn't really know how to process it. And then I think when it finally hit me, um, I was, I don't know, annoyed, scared. Every time I went to the hospital and sat in the waiting room, I felt like, I know it sounds bad, but I felt like I was the only person kind of in my 30s, and I was comparing myself to my friends who were out celebrating their 30th birthday. And I just found it really hard to actually come to terms with. Initially, I was referred to a hospital near my parents' house. So, because I was based at my parents' in England as I recovered, I was signposted to a hospital nearby to do the follow up CT scans. But I was really concerned about the fact that it's so rare, and that I'm in a lot of appendix cancer groups on Facebook. And the community is so great, but everyone does say like you need to see a specialist because it's so misunderstood. So, eventually, about a year later, I started to push for a referral to see an appendix cancer specialist, and eventually transferred to a different team at a different hospital. I definitely think it's important to find someone that, like in my case, it specializes in your specific cancer, because then not only do you feel like more reassured and more protected and that they're doing the right tests, I just think it's so important for, catching anything that comes back again, like in good time. My whole diagnosis is based on self-advocacy. Like if I had just listened to the 5, 6 doctors that had told me that nothing was wrong, then I don't think I'd like be here today. When I went to Taiwan to the surgery in Taiwan, they said to me that I needed surgery. So I said, "Okay, can I fly home?" And they said no, because you won't survive the flight. And so I don't know what state the tumor was in or whether it was going to burst. I have no idea. But I think if I hadn't pushed and pushed and pushed and really believed in the fact that I needed a CT scan, then I'd be in a lot worse position than I am in now. I think it's changed a lot. Like before, so I used to live in China before, and I've always traveled, but now I don't feel the same. Like now I feel very cautious. I'm really scared about the future and if it's going to come back. And then I'm now very aware that I need to keep going to do the scans. Um, and yeah, I'm like, if appendix cancer comes back, then it's horrible, and you have a lot of organs removed. And I'm scared that I won't have the chance to have children, and I'm scared that it's going to be hard to meet someone with all of this going on. So um, yeah, it's different than just being like carefree and adventurous like before. I was big into fitness before. I ran a lot of half marathons and always did fitness activities. But after my operation, I found it really hard to get back into it. So yeah, so whilst I was waiting for my MRI scans in the UK, there was quite a wait, and so to keep my brain busy to stop myself from going insane, I did my personal training qualification. I always thought about doing my personal training qualification, but I just never got around to doing it. And so, like I say, when I was waiting for tests and scans, which took a really long time, I just thought, what, like, it's now or never. And it was so good for me because it kept my mind active whilst I was doing the personal training qualification. And then through my own research, I was trying to find how to like get back into fitness after surgery. I stumbled across a course for cancer exercise rehabilitation. So I thought, let's just do that as well. And so, yeah, I passed the course and then thought, let's try and help other people. So I actually first reached out to the Appendix Cancer community because they've been so helpful to me, and asked for volunteers to start training so that I could start building experience in the field. And I still feel like I'm learning a lot as I go along because it's all a complete new path for me. But it's been really good, and I'm really enjoying working with the especially the appendix cancer community, as I feel like we can relate to each other quite a lot. I am very grateful that I was active before I went into emergency surgery, because I generally believe that that helped me to recover quicker. And even the surgeon let me out of hospital quicker. And he said that is probably because I used to do a lot of cardiovascular fitness. And so I would 100% recommend just being as active and as healthy as possible, because it can help before surgery, during treatment, and after. It's given me something to focus on, and then I just feel so much better in myself as well. And I feel like I've accomplished something throughout the day if I like tick off all my fitness goals. So I definitely think it can help. And it also just gets your mind off of cancer, and then you can just focus on something else. So for me, it's been like so good. Life's so short, and to live life to the fullest. Like, I really want to just live a life that I enjoy, and I think happiness is the most important. And I also believe that you should advocate for yourself if you feel like something's wrong.